you want me to do this first before you start the timer? Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to leave you in 10 more minutes of anxiety before I start.
I really appreciate that, Tyler.
It was really important.
It's all
just to make sure that you're respecting the process.
Dude, if anybody gotta be fashionably late, it's gonna be you. Okay, so I do respectfully request that, or let me close the door first. I respectfully request that questions are held off until the end. I'm going to talk for approximately 15 minutes, or if I run over whenever Pat decides to cut me off. Good to go? All right. I'm just waiting for you to start the timer. Hello. All right, so today we're going to be talking about my dissertation, which is reconceptualizing trust, defining, modeling, and measuring a phenomenon that is familiar to us all, but very difficult to study. And primarily we're going to focus on building bridges. So building bridges in the sense of in science, we need to build bridges between constructs in order to actually come to a common understanding of them and move science forward. And we build bridges in science by coming to a common definition, a common conceptual model, and then a common measurement model. So no matter where we're studying the construct or what aspect of the construct we're studying, we can then agree that we've studied the same thing and we're adding to the literature. Now I'm going to start with a story to put building bridges in a more literal sense. Not too long ago in 2004, Germany and Switzerland were united in Schengen, and they realized, hey, if we build a bridge between two of our cities, well, we can increase commerce by making traffic easier, we can develop jobs, that's going to be a benefit for the both of us. So they got to building bridges on their respective sides of the river. Well, they ran into a little debacle once they built their respective sides of the bridge. The bridges were off by a height of 2 feet. Thus, no cars could cross, and we had a bit of a disconnect. The issue stemmed from they did not have a common understanding of the foundation of their measurement, and that common understanding came from they both measured sea level differently, so that's why the heights were off. The Swiss referenced sea level from the North Sea, and the Germans referenced sea level from the Mediterranean Sea. Well, because they could actually observe this difference, it was very easy to fix. Just like you can change imperial units to metric units through a calculation, the Germans went to work very quickly, fixed their calculations, they built the bridge, everything was good, traffic crossed, and jobs and commerce increased. The problem that we have, though, in the literature of unobservable phenomenon like trust is that if we don't have a common model, we can continue to try and build bridges, but it's very difficult to see whether we actually built the bridge well. And in trust right now, we have multiple bridges of all different sizes, but we don't have a common understanding and definition of what trust is, so everyone studies it in their own way. And thus, we have the 2-foot height difference going on. So the one point of today is that the framework in the literature for building a bridge about trust does exist. And that's what I decided to focus on. And we think we may have found the framework for that bridge. So the 3 key points, just to quickly recap, is that the trust literature is a bit of a mess. We don't have a common definition and model of what trust is in science, so we can't really build a singular bridge and come to a common understanding of it. And thus, we're measuring trust all over the place. However, a framework does exist, and my colleagues and I think we identified it, and we've built that bridge. So the 3 points that I'm going to cover today is where that framework came from, how we tested it in terms of the bridge that we built. We tried to stress test that bridge by giving some perturbations to the model and see if it held up. And then finally, we tested the model against a new and independent sample after stress testing it and found that it held up. So the first point, standing on the shoulders of giants with tortoises, we came to the development of common conceptual model of trust. The framework laid in the trust research that has been going on for over 70 years. The issue, though, is that trust is measured in a myriad of different ways. Sometimes it's a vow, sometimes it's an agreement marked by a handshake, sometimes it's just choosing to trust your autonomous car, like a Tesla, to drive for you on the road, which is becoming all too common. Other times, it's trusting your climbing gear that it's not going to fail on you. But all those different measurements don't give us a common understanding of what trust is. So we looked at what did the literature say defined trust? What is it? Well, trust is a common method for humans, all humans, to use to reduce uncertainty and form social bonds. And that is It's subjective. We take a personal perspective on what trust actually is. We interpret situations differently. But when we care about an outcome of a situation, and we're sufficiently uncertain that we can't necessarily obtain it on our own, or we're uncomfortable with that uncertainty, we turn to relying on another individual or an agent of some sort. And the agent can be a computer in this case, since we're becoming much more technologically driven in our world. And by relying on that agent, we're making ourselves willingly vulnerable and taking a risk that we could potentially not achieve our outcome and or get harmed. But we expect that the agent is going to act well on our behalf to achieve that outcome. So with these 7 common components that we found in the literature, we came to a singular model, our bridge. Trust emerges and comes about when the situation's outcome matters enough, our goal importance. We're sufficiently uncertain about our ability to actually achieve that outcome on our own, thus creating the need for reliance on another agent. So when you have goal importance, reliance, and uncertainty at a high enough level, trust becomes relevant. And to set the mood for an example, have a little Jimi Hendrix. Imagine yourself right now trying to get to an interview. The interview is going to make or break your career. The goal matters. But there's a lot of traffic that day. Even though you accounted for 30 minutes extra in your commute, all of a sudden you realize there's an accident on the road ahead. Your friendly little traffic app, Google Maps or what have you, says, yo, the road's shut down. 2 cars decided to crash into each other. All too common here in DC, right? Well, it says that it has a new route for you, but it's a route you're unfamiliar with. And considering that this job is going to make or break your career potentially, do you choose to rely on it? These are the kind of scenarios that we developed in order to test whether or not individuals were trusting. So we asked people to go through imaginal exposure, and we gave them some information about a situation. Not enough information to really make a final decision, but we said, hey, how important do you think this goal is, and how uncertain are you about achieving that goal on your own? Once they gave us their responses, we then said, okay, here's a little bit more information, and here's a potential agent on which you can rely if you feel like you're not certain enough you can achieve that outcome on your own, and it matters enough. We asked them about their uncertainty about the individual or the agent that we offered to them, and then we followed up with a little bit of additional information to try and really seal the deal and see if we can manipulate people's perceptions of goal importance, reliance, and uncertainty. And then we asked them about whether or not they would actually intend to act and rely on that agent behaviorally, what their level of trust was in that situation, and how comfortable they were with the decision that they made, so uncertainty after the fact. And what we found after several data collection iterations of refining the vignettes as well as our measurement model is that we found the interaction we expected. Oddly enough, we actually didn't expect to find it because a 3-way interaction is an incredibly risky test in science. But we found that once goal importance, reliance, and uncertainty were high enough, people decided that trust was relevant. And they rated their trust levels much higher than in any other combination of those situations. So since it seems like our interaction, our bridge, had a pretty good framework, we wanted to stress test it. And that was because we found some outcomes that we really couldn't explain. We expected that for each of our components, as trust increased, so would they. So goal importance would increase, trust would increase in a linear relationship. But as in nature, we don't tend to find linear relationships very common. You don't expect your phone to be 10 times as charged 10 minutes after plugging it in as it is after 1 minute. So we found some curvilinear relationships. We found a lot more of B than we did of A. And we wanted to see if we can fit the data better and fix that to improve our model. So what we did is I tested out some transformations, alternative models in terms of random coefficient models, as well as some alternative temporal models. So does it matter in what order you make these decisions? Do you have to determine that the goal and uncertainty about that goal is high enough before you choose to rely, or does it matter when that occurs? And we tested this against a current sample that we had already collected. It was made up of a general population, so we had people from Amazon, undergraduates from here, which is pretty much what every psychology study focuses on, undergraduates, people from Reddit, general social media, and the community. What we then did is added 8 additional vignettes to see if we could develop a new set of scenarios and test it and not rely on the fact that our original test of the model was solely tied to one effort. And we developed a new sample from the same sources: community, social media, Facebook, Reddit, Amazon Mechanical Turk, and undergraduates. What we found is that our model still held, and it was actually the best explaining model. No transformation, no alternative model in terms of random coefficients actually explained anything better. And the mediation model didn't work, so it didn't seem to matter that you made the reliance decision specifically after the fact of the goal importance or uncertainty decision. So it's possible that we built our bridge. And as proved, here's the final Laufenberg Bridge between Germany and Switzerland. It looks like cars might be able to cross over our bridge. We have a potential common understanding of what trust is with our model. There's still a lot more work to be done, and a lot of questions were raised doing this research. However, we're on a good path. Any questions?
Several.
That's good. That's good. Hopefully they're.
Was that Lionel Richie?
Huh?
One of those pictures?
No, it was Jimi Hendrix.
Oh. No, the
Lionel
picture.
Richie in there? Yeah. And then
We're dating
it was
ourselves.
Adele.
Yeah.
Things.
No.
Yes, we.
How do you actually compromise to get to build the bridge?
That's a really good question. Scientists just have to agree that what we propose defines trust actually is trust. So what we have to do is we have to collect enough data and show that we stress tested our model enough that it can hold up to scrutiny. So what I want to do with this is then hand our model off to other scientists and say, go ahead and test it in your own paradigm and see if it actually produces the interaction that we found. And if it does for them, then it's a pretty good model. But if it doesn't, then we may have been wrong, or that maybe we misidentified something. That's a good question.
How does the bridge even work?
That's another good question. How does it work? Well, think about, you say you trust your mom and dad, right? That took a little bit. So when do you trust them? Do you trust them when you don't care about achieving something? So like say you want to go to a friend's party. What if you didn't want to go? Would you care? Would you care whether your mom took you if you didn't want to go? No. So the goal doesn't matter. Do you think you need to trust her then? What would you trust her to do for you?
I would ask her to not actually go to the park.
Oh, so you're trusting her to not take you? Well, if you don't ask to go, so let's say you don't ask to go, she won't take you. So the goal doesn't matter. But what if you want to go? The goal matters then, right? You want to get there, and you need her to drive you there. Can you drive there? Can you walk?
I can't.
No, you can't. Can you walk there?
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe you don't know. Okay, so you have some uncertainty about that outcome. All right. So is your mom pretty good at usually giving you rides to places? Yeah? If she says she's going to do it, does she do it? Yeah, so you can rely on her, huh? Do you think you can trust her then? So that's why we think we have goal, importance, reliance, and uncertainty. You need those 3 in order to trust. But if there's something else that you think is relevant to trusting, let me know. Maybe I missed something.
Girls, those were good questions.
Yeah.
Very good questions. Put me on the spot.
So we will allow a few questions from the audience, and then afterwards we're going to close the session in fairness to the candidate, Simone, because it's not generally speaking, it's not a good idea to have the student have to defend her work in front of others. If we were in Spain, Spain has a dissertation defense style where the entire town is invited, and inside in this pit in the rotunda, the student sits, and then one level up around the student are the committee members, and then one level up is the faculty. And then I think in the 5th or 6th level, is the entire community that stands, and they witness this, and everyone's invited. And the student must stay until the last question has been answered. And there have been dissertation defenses even today that have lasted 36 to 48 hours.
So
That's
the
why-
question is, do you trust the methodology?
No, we trust our methodology. We actually have more productive people.
I think they have a similar format when they hang people.
Yes, yeah, probably. Do you have any last requests? Yes, I would like to defend a dissertation.
Very impressive. I would expect a lion to come into that.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions for Simone?